Hello. Hello, everyone. Please take your seats. So the meetup will start in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Peaks Speaks. Today, meetup topic is AI cloud crossover, Azure AWS, and security showdown with Giorgio, Suhat, and Kanan. First of all, let's start with our short video of our company. Okay, as you see, we do a lot of events here. Peaks Speak is a premier tech design and marketing meetup where we bring in industry leads, share about technical meetup, networking, and learn from a global company. Okay, we don't just facilitate transformation, we drive it. With our 15 years of experience in product design and development, with 250 staff in our company from various nationality, around 30, 35 nationality, and 400 customers work with us. And this is our CEO of 7Peaks, Justine Agnes. And this is some of our company that we work with in various industry about financial service, insurance, retail, healthcare, entertainment, gasol, etc. From last year, we just got certified from Workventure as a best place to work. At 7Peaks, we work hard, but we party harder. We have a lot of events in our company, such as Christmas event, company outing, department outing. And we also doing a lot of activities about sport activity, badminton, running, or sometimes we do go-kart. And right now, we are looking for talent developers and designers to join our team. For backend team, with a senior developer .NET. Web team, senior web using React, solution architect, platform, delivery, product, design, or marketing. If you guys have any potential candidate would like to refer, feel free to contact us at job@7peaks. And today agenda will start with Suhat about data ingestion with AWS, and then meet with Kanan with security over AI and data. Okay, and then for the last one, meet with Giorgio for Azure OpenAI. After finish the meetup, please give us the feedback via this QR code to help us improve about for the upcoming events and get free pizza and beer. Thank you for coming today. We also have a next event is Code War will happening on 3rd February at here 7 Peak. Feel free to scan the QR code to register. For now, I will give the mic to Giorgio to next step.
Okay, I'm not Suaz, as Pan tell to us. I will be here only for the introduction. So, thank you very much to be here in the 7 Peaks office, and thank you very much for the people at home that are watching us. I complete the introduction of the 7 Peaks software company with our accreditation. We have a Microsoft solution partner for digital and app innovation, data AI over Azure. Moreover, we have a partnership with AWS with the selected tier services. This is the current solution architect team. There is our manager, Daniel, me, Dinand, okay, he's not here, Suas, and Kenan. We are the 5 guys here. Okay, just the introduction. Welcome to the first 7 Speaks of 2024. We, as a solution team, solution architect team, we change the format for our meetup. We present you one case study taken from the normal business lifestyle, okay? 3 speakers, 3 different topics, all connected, all together with the case study. We want to do that, we decide to do that, to give more proper solution and discussion to you on the problem that probably you find in your business life. I hope that you enjoy. Okay, let me introduce immediately the case study. The enterprise, my company, or company of mine, has already been services in AWS. And my company used this service to establish their business. Recently, my company decided to use the new service of Azure OpenAI to scale up their business. First of all, they want to launch an internal product to boost the internal productivity of the company. Moreover, among the 2 cloud providers, we need to take care about the security and management over the access to the services and the data themselves. So those are the 3 main arguments that we cover this evening. And we, or you, depends where we are, as a solution architect, was entitled to convert the entire process. I give the stage to Suas for the first topic.
Hello guys, I'm Suhas. I'm a solutions architect in 7 Peaks. Been here for a couple of years now and hope you enjoy the presentation. Now, I'm going to present you specific requirements about data ingestion to AWS. These kind of requirements is mostly like what you see when you give AWS examination or AWS certification questions, right? These are ideal requirements that you would get or that you would want, which you most likely won't get from clients that you are facing right now. So it's an ideal scenario. Basically, my company, or Giorgio's company, let's say, already has IoT devices set up in their factory. These IoT devices measure probably temperature, humidity, or something like that, right? And the operation team has informed that we will only send those statuses and a device ID to the AWS IoT core, which is an AWS IoT service provided by AWS themselves. Now, the reason that they don't want to send a lot of data, like device info and everything, is because we have very limited payload size. If we increase the payload size, AWS will start charging you extra money. And plus, there's bottleneck of data transfer, right? Now, the rest of the device info, as Giorgio mentioned already, we already have existing systems in AWS. They're using an application which has a DynamoDB database, which is a NoSQL database. It's fully managed by AWS as well. And the device info with the device ID is already stored in DynamoDB database. Now, they come to a solution architect, me, and then they say, the data needs to be ingested from the IoT device. It needs to be enriched, which means it needs to have all the device info attached to it, and then stored in an S3 bucket. The other requirement is that the enriched data can be deleted after 30 days as well. I only care for the data that has an expiry up to 30 days. The reason being is that it's for the use case that Kanan Giorgio will cover later, is that we already have a solution in place to transfer data from S3 to Azure. It could be over direct connect, express route, stuff like that, right? We already have that. Once the data is transferred, there's no point storing the data because the analysis will happen in Azure. The frequency of the device that sends data is not predictable. Sometimes it can send a lot of data, sometimes it cannot send, it will send very less data. The solution needs to be scalable, cost-effective, and with least administration required. So they don't want someone just constantly monitoring, scaling the solution every now and then, right? Now we talk about the source. Basically, we have IoT, like the on-premise IoT hardware board, which sends data to the IoT topic in AWS IoT Core. They will use MQTT protocol. It's a pub sub, and it will send data to AWS. The authentication and authorization is done with X509 certification, if I'm not mistaken. And each device will have their own certificate, and it will send data to the cloud. Now, once the data is sent to the cloud, to an IoT topic, there is this thing called IoT rule. Pretty much what that IoT rule does is as soon as a data is published to IoT topic, I can do certain actions. I can basically take that message, send it somewhere, certain actions, pretty much. And then this is triggered as soon as the data is published to an IoT topic. Right? Now, the destination. Our destination is Amazon S3, as described in the use case. Like, it needs to be stored in S3. S3 is object storage solution, fully managed by AWS as well, so you don't need to take care of it. There is a limit for the storage, but it's very high, so you will most likely never reach. And also, we have the requirement that the object should be expired, or the data should be expired after 30 days. In order to do that, you don't expect someone to just stay there and then say, okay, this data has been there for 30 days, I'll go there, click, delete, click, delete. So that's not effective. That's an extra administration required. So what AWS provides in their AWS S3 service is that you have an option to enable object expiry and set the amount of days. Now, there can be confusion if you have something called versioning enabled in S3. Pretty much, versioning means that if you enable versioning, if you delete a certain object, that can be recovered because it's technically not delete, it's just replaced with a new version that is a delete marker. But that's more detailed about S3 and S3 storage, so I will not go into more details about it. Now, the journey from the source, which is an IoT topic, or IoT rule, let's say, to the destination, which is an S3. AWS or Amazon Kinesis data firehose. Like the real world fire hose that you see. It's pretty much you have a massive tank of water and you have a fire hose that pretty much take that water, spits it out to a particular target. This service from AWS does exactly the same. It takes certain sources of data and then spits it out to a particular target, right? Now, the main use case that says, I don't want any administration required. I don't want to manually scale based on the amount of data that I get and everything. So AWS does everything for you. It's automatically scaled. That means it can support up to gigabytes per second data transfers. It automatically scales compute, memory, network resources without any additional administration. So AWS does that for you. And the thing is, you pay for what you use. The same for S3 that I mentioned before. You pay for what you use. You pay for the data that is stored in S3. For Firehose, you pay for the data transfer that goes through Firehose as well. Now, this service is very ideal for this use case, let's say that. As a source of Firehose, it does support AWS IoT as a source. And it does support Amazon S3 as a destination as well. So that sort of fits our use case already. I'm getting data from IoT rules, like the IoT topic, which goes to the rule, then comes to Firehose. Then I spit it out to S3, right? And also it supports, it's optional, but it also supports transformation options, which pretty much, as our use case that we mentioned before, we have the use case that we need to enrich the data, right? Well, because all of the device info and everything is stored in our DynamoDB database, which the IoT device does not have access to. Now, how do I enrich data in Firehose? This is a Lambda logo, and this is a DynamoDB logo. Pretty much, Lambda is your function. It's one of the first service, I think if not the first service that AWS provided. And it has a runtime of maximum of 15 minutes. If your application is running close to even 10 minutes, I would suggest not to use that particular solution, but yeah. And there is a soft limit into every account, which is like, you can run 1,000 concurrent functions at the same time, right? And it's soft limit. If you want to increase the limit, you can create a ticket to AWS and just say, I want 100,000 functions. And then they will say, okay, fine. And you pay for what you use. The amount of Lambda functions that you run, the amount of concurrent tasks that you run, and the execution time. You pay for that. DynamoDB, all we need, now we come to the security part, right? We can assign a permission to Lambda to only have read permission to a particular table in DynamoDB. We don't need any more permission. We don't want to give permission to the Lambda function because maybe I don't trust the developer. Maybe they will say, delete all from this table or something, maybe an accidental test script, let's say that. It could happen, right? But yeah, so you only provide the permission that you need. So Lambda has the permission to read the data from the DynamoDB. We get the ID from the payload from the IoT device into Firehose. Firehose sends it to Lambda, and then we can get the device info. Then we transform the data, and then we send it back to Firehose. And Firehose will be responsible to send it to S3. So let's bring all of our separate topics together, and this is the final solution, right? We send the data from the IoT, on-premise, IoT topic. IoT topic then triggers the IoT rule, says, I have a new data. What should I do with it? Oh, I have a rule. I need to send it to Kinesis, data Firehose, right? I send it to Firehose, and then I'll say, oh, Firehose has a transformation function attached to it. Let's do that. So one thing to mention, it might be a bit technical, is that for the Amazon Kinesis data Firehose has something called a buffer as well. For every message, you don't want to trigger a Lambda function because it will get very expensive because you pay for what you use. The more Lambda you run, the more cost it incurs. So there is something called a buffer. You can set a limit to particular size. AWS suggests 1 megabyte, 2 megabytes, something like that, or a time limit. Whichever limit reaches first, it will get all the data in a batch, sends it to Lambda, and all you need to do is, for all the record that I get in a batch, get those information from DynamoDB, enrich it, base 64, encode it again. You'll get it in base 64, you decode it, you transform it, base 64, encode it, send it back to Firehose. Once it gets to Firehose, it says, now all I have to do is send it to S3, right? So this is your complete solution. And since you pay for the storage in S3, and we have that rule already that data will be deleted after 30 days, so you will have a sort of predictable cost, a certain cost that like you already know, I'm only paying for 30 days worth of data. I'm not paying for 2 years worth of data or 10 years worth of data. And in S3, there are different tiers of storage as well. So you can it can go all the way. It has 7 tiers. It can go all the way to archive. Each tier is less in price, but if you have nothing there, then you will obviously not pay, right? So this, and everything is scalable. Everything you don't need to manage. The only thing you need to be careful of is the configuration that you put in Firehose and the permissions that you set across each other and the code that you put inside Lambda. Please don't put any destructive code inside Lambda. The thing that I did not cover overall in this one is sometimes data may be not processed correctly in Lambda. So what you want to do is add that logging option, send it out to CloudWatch, which is, if you guys know Application Insight, is similar solution to Lambda. It's a monitoring solution provided by AWS. So those are some of the things that we need to consider. By the way, this entire solution with permissions that you allocate to each of these services, everything is available in this URL that I mentioned at the bottom. You can easily find that in AWS blog, and it's around like 3 months old blog, pretty much. So yeah, so this is the overall solution. And as I mentioned that the transfer from S3 to Azure is already established. That we do not care. What the next speaker will take care of is the security about that data that goes to Azure. Any questions? Okay. Please.
I was asking, okay, you got to the right slide. So I was going to ask this Amazon DynamoDB at the very bottom. The arrow was a little confusing to me, but this is the enrichment direction.
Yes, it's pretty much to signify read. So it's only reading. I'm not writing down, I'm reading.
But does anything really, is there really a implicit down arrow from Lambda to call it? Like, hey, send me these data.
Yes, you actually need to make an API call to DynamoDB. Okay. And then you can specify specific saying like, I can allow only scan, I can allow only read, I can allow only this. You can add that permission to Lambda to access the DynamoDB.
Okay. Can I just add that you're like really engaging and you had me, really focused. So yeah, good job.
All right. Thank you.
Hi. How are you deciding whether to store it in a storage service or in the DynamoDB, especially if it's just metadata like the name of the device?
Okay, so those things are part of the use case, right? But for a similar situation that we had before, I'm gonna relate to real world scenario that we had. They already had a device management application that used DynamoDB as a storage. So they were storing device information about what devices they deployed into their application, which then stores it in DynamoDB. So we're using the same source as the source of truth, pretty much. So if you had a different source, you could point it to different source as well.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I was thinking about, do we need this step 4 for, because I think maybe we can directly from IoT rule call the AWS Lambda and then get the information, send it to the Kansas, and then save it to the S3, just for reducing the kind of extra operation.
Yes, you can do that. We do not say no, right? But pretty much what you are telling Lambda to do is also make the call to S3 to upload that data as well. You're adding extra overhead inside Lambda itself.
I mean, what's the point of sending the step 3? What it does to a step 3 to calling the Kansas and then call the Lambda?
Okay, so pretty much if you have an IoT rule, right? It triggers on every message.
Yes.
And let's say you get like 10,000 messages at once. As the use case mentioned, we don't know how many messages we get per second. You can, by this rule, can trigger 10,000 messages. 10,000 Lambda functions. By default, AWS only gives you 1,000, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to batch it, which is done by Firehose, and then you can send it. And you can enrich it with Lambda as well.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, short question about the N storage here. So we have Amazon S3, and we plan to delete the data after 30 days, right?
Yes.
So I guess it's just logging data that we store there. Do we plan to have some analysis afterwards, or or is it just to have a simple, cheap storage solution?
So for our use case, just in AWS, is just to have data prepared so that can be utilized by the services that Giorgio will cover to do some AI analysis and stuff like that in Azure. So this data over here is just for storage purposes and make it ready for transfer to Azure.
So like a part of a data lake, something like that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But you can also link, you can have some extra features, you can extend it more if you want the complete solution in AWS. You can extend to some AWS analysis feature, like and then use that data in AWS itself as well. But the company chose Azure.
Hey, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Then let's see what Giorgio does.
The data are there for 30 days. It's not placed there after escape, disappear.
All right. So if no more questions, then let me introduce Kanan, who's going to talk about security over AI and data services.
Thank you so much, Suhas. My name is Kanan. I've been with Peaks for almost a year and a half now, as a solution architect. So I'm gonna cover the security part of the entire solution which we have proposed here. Okay. Before I move deep into security, I just want to highlight on the few of the security principles, and then I'll go to our use case, and I'm gonna tell you guys how I'm gonna apply these two principles inside our solution. So the first thing is principle of least privilege. So what people should have access and who should have access, and on what entity they should have access. It's not just something I'm a dog, I have access to kitchen, I have access to bedroom, I have access to the washroom. No, you have limited access, and depends upon what access they need to have. So what is principle of least privilege, or POLP? First thing is you should have access to see the data only which you are intended to see. It's not I'm a part of Seven Peaks, and I cannot like have access to, as a solution architect, I cannot have access to all the financial information of Seven Peaks. So you need to restrict like certain amount of data, like which is will be accessed by a certain specific people. And and principle of least privilege primarily focus on access control and the permission management. And these are like pretty much basic, because you know like which person has like what role in a particular company, and like what he should be able to access, like and it's pretty much going to be a static one. It's not going to change like very often, unless until like the person moves from one role to another, something like that. And the main ideology behind this, like if you don't give them access, they don't know what exactly is there in the system. So so you try to like restrict access, and like you don't give authorization or even authentication to some of the resources like which they are not intended to see. So that is pretty much the principle of least privilege. Is that enough? Like you are gonna restrict people from like seeing things, but like there are like other things. This can be easily breaken, and then like there are like a lot of different ways of like how you can enter, like bypassing all these things. But on top of that, like you need like more and more security. Like security doesn't like just like stop with access. There is more towards security, and that's where like the second principle. Okay, so I just want to cover like in Azure, like how we do this is just like we have something called as role-based access control, which is an inbuilt feature of Azure, where you can specify that like you can divide your team members into groups, and you can assign those particular groups a specific role. And Azure pretty much has most of the roles predefined. These are like predefined Azure roles where you can select them to be an owner or an administrator or reader or a contributor or a user management administrator. Like you have like lots of like roles predefined. But if you want like some custom roles to be created, like Azure provides you an access of like creating custom roles. For example, like a reader can also have access to certain write access on storage accounts or like a service bus queue. So you can still pretty much like define those smaller, finer grainer rules in Azure with using a custom roles. And Azure policy is something like these are like for a normal users or like a person who is just working, like have a small company or something. On an enterprise level, like you can enforce an Azure policy. Azure policy is something for an enterprise support, like where you have a set of predefined rules which you create, and like which you can override like the Azure policy. And that's how like you can enhance the security and like have an enterprise level security instead of like the basic role-based security which Azure provides you. And this is in the perspective of an user. Then what about the applications? Even application needs access to database and storage accounts and so on and so forth. So whenever like you are creating an app registration on Azure Active Directory, then like you give like certain amount of access to that particular application, and how you're going to manage those security. The same thing, like you give access only to the specific resource, to the application which you are creating, and like registering on an app registration. You do not give like extraordinary permission to access directly Key Vault. So I have seen like a lot of things doing like for example you access the Key Vault from the code, like so, and like if you're giving read, write and delete access, so, and pretty much like your application can delete the secrets in the Key Vault, and like which will be a problematic in the future, like if you don't have the keys to encrypt or like or database connection or like whatever it is. So the best practice over here would be like you give access only to your app configuration, which is a feature like in Azure, like where you can keep all the config related details in app config, and like your application access it, and only your application config can access Key Vault and like retrieve the secrets and then like give it to you. So this is like you create like one level of distinction between these two solutions, right? so that like you can effectively manage like, okay, not all the projects will be having access to Key Vault, but like everything will be having access to app config, and app config only has access to Key Vault, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, and the second most important concept like is zero trust policy. Basically, I don't trust anybody, like, and so this becomes easier for me. No, don't trust anybody, and like don't trust anybody at any point of time. So that is basic concept of zero trust policy. And some people might have this opinion that like zero trust policy is just like an same new terminology for like principle of least privilege, but no, principle of like least privilege focus only on the access management, but zero trust policy has a broader view on it, like when it comes to security architecture, like which we can talk about networking, and then authentication, authorization, and then like data uh, inside the inside the storage account, like how you're gonna like track the threads inside the storage account, like brute force attack, and so on and so forth. And unlike unlike yeah, so for the zero trust policy, it's not like a static one, like it's going to be dynamic, and like you keep on reviewing each and every time, like what is the access required, and like why this access is required. For example, like if you're creating a VPC and like you're connecting with any services, you don't have to give the entire VPC to access a particular storage account or like a key vault, but rather like you should be giving a specific application, like a specific subnet to access a particular service in Azure. And so we think that like most of the threat comes from the external source, like, but there might be a threat from the internal source as well, like maybe like Suha said, like we might have the some malicious code like which we have written, like it's not like malicious, but like a code which was not written properly, and like you are trying to do something and like the code does something else, like deleting a database, or like dropping a cluster, like so on and so forth. Like, so we should be like really worried about that, like and make sure like those things are also being addressed. So how do we implement zero trust policy? First thing, like all your applications, like whenever like you are allow a user to log into your application, use authentication, like is that enough? Like no, like on top of that, like we need to have like a multi-factor authentication. Your credentials might be stolen, but if you enable multi-factor authentication, like it gives you an extra layer of security on top of that, so that like even if a hacker has access to your credentials, he cannot like enter into your system. And the second thing is like private endpoints. Whenever like you are connecting your resources, like for example you have a storage account and you need to connect that with your application, and your application is in VPC, so you use your like private endpoints to connect to the storage account, and by default your storage account or your databases like in Azure should be restricted only to VPC, and like you should allow all the you should deny all the public access to your data source. Yes, and then like data encryption, like so whenever like your data is at rest and like storage account on Azure SQL or like Postgres, so you should like always try to encrypt your data. Most specifically, if it is going to be in a storage account, like it's better to encrypt the data. And zero trust policy for application. Whenever like you are logging in on a corporate application, like always try to use an Azure AD proxy, which proxies your connection to a secure network, and then like you will be able to access the required resources using your application. Threat detection and like response. So you have like Azure database and like storage, like which has like an inbuilt system using Security Center, where you can go ahead and like see what are the vulnerabilities you have within your storage account or a database. So you can go ahead and check and see like what are the remediation, like and Azure clearly lists down all the steps of a remediation, like in your Security Center. Like you can go ahead and like check and like remediate those things. Like the common things are like if you have an access, inbound access from the public network, like that shows as a threat. And then like you have like not enough like administrator, then like that is going to be like one of the threat. Like these are common threats. And security automation and orchestration, in case if there is a security incident, like how do you track this? Like you have a security incident, like, and alert is triggered, how do you configure the alert? Like use the logic apps and like configure the alert and so on and so forth. So that's how these are like pretty much like some of the steps of like zero trust policy. And the cool feature about there's something cool features about like Azure is that there is a just in time like enhancement of your privilege, like that is which is called as like PIM in Azure right now. Like so you have a reader role access right now, and then but like for some reason you want to go ahead and like increase your access level for doing a particular task, and you don't want that to be forever, like maybe for 1 hour or something. That time you can set up your PIM, which will elevate your access, and somebody can go ahead and approve your elevated access, and they can perform a particular task, and then like after 1 hour it goes back to your reader role. Yeah, so now let's come back to the use case which we have. Like as Suhas already mentioned that like we already transferred like whatever the data is in S3, we move that to Azure storage. There are like multiple ways of doing it. Like our data architect is here, like so we had like a lot of conversation on that, like we're using ADF or like maybe as some other solutions. Like so that part is done, like, and now our data is already there in the Azure storage account. So what are the things we need to do in terms of security to secure the data which is stored in storage account? First thing is like disable all the inbound requests from public network. So that's where like your first layer comes into picture, like the network security layer. So and then integrate that with VNet and like whatever. So the solution what Georgia is going to talk, like it's going to cover this part as well. Like whatever the solution is going to deploy, he's going to deploy it into a virtual network, and like only that virtual network has access to your storage account. And whenever like they are trying to access these storage accounts, we use role-based authentication, so that like only the required participant can attend have access to the storage account. And MSI access, like so the most common thing like is you cannot always like keep your passwords secure. Like there are like many ways like where you can lose your password, and like attackers can always get a hold of those passwords. So Azure has a cool feature which is called as MSI access. Like for example, you have a connection string, storage account connection string, and you don't have to use the entire connection string where it has the credentials. Instead, like you can give permission for your application to access the storage account using an MSI access. Like there is no credentials involved. That is one way to restrict access on your data at rest. And SAS token, like SAS token is again something like which is similar to RBAC, like where like you can give a specific access to a specific part of your storage account. If a particular person wants like only access to a blob container, like give access to them, like, and you can, and it's always time specific. Like you can specify the time, like whether it's going to be like 90 minutes or 100 minutes or so on and so forth. And enable threat protection, so that like just like what I said in the Defender, same thing, like we can enable the threat protection, so we know like what are the things which is happening. Like it analyzes this audit logs, and then you will be having like all the necessary information about the potential threat. And when it comes to something like database, like you can always like restrict people on like a row based access. Like only a particular row can be accessed by a particular person, and you can always achieve that in all the SQL databases right now. This is okay. We have separated our network, like the people cannot access it from the network. And then the second thing is like you have created role-based authentication, you have set up like all the Defender and other stuff, like but still, what if the data which has been ingested by Suhas in the previous step has some malicious software, and then when Giorgio is trying to go ahead and do some AI with that, and it corrupts the entire system, that is still very much possible. Are we going to consider that? And if you are saving some sensitive data within your storage containers, how you are going to protect it? If somebody has access to it, do you get a alert mechanism? And suspicious data activity, all of a sudden, some hacker has access to your storage account, and he's trying to download all the files and all the containers, and those things are a kind of a malicious activity. And there is another possible approaches like data corruption, where the data people have intentionally put in some data to corrupt the data, try to encrypt the data so that it becomes unusable. So these are all other problems which we need to deal with it. And good thing is Microsoft announced Defender for storage in September 2023 last year. And it pretty much kind of has all these features where you can detect the malware threat, and if there is a sensitive data stolen, then it triggers you an alert, and suspicious data activity, then it triggers you an alert, and you can pretty much create a workflow for all these particular use cases using Logic App and Defender for storage. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Hi, I got two questions. One was, what are MSI and SAS? When I see MSI, I think of Microsoft Installer, which is probably not what it is.
No.
One forward. No, forward. Right there. Okay,
sorry,
two back.
Sorry.
Right there. Two forward.
Another
One more forward. There you go.
Oh, MSA access.
Bullets 3, 4, and 5.
So you have a reader access right now, which has been assigned on Azure, and for a specific task, you want to insert something into Azure storage account, but as a reader, you will not be having access. But if your job requires that specific access for you to insert, but you don't should be having access forever. So you need just-in-time access. I want to do this job, I'm gonna get this access, and then boom, that's gone. You go back to your reader role. So you can create a workflow using MSI access where there are certain privileges roles which has been assigned to you, and you can elevate to those privileged roles for an administrator or a reader or writer or something like that, and you can pretty much enable it when it's required. You go to MSI and increase your privilege, and then you complete the task, and then it's expired after one hour or whatever the time frame you created for.
I should have asked, what does MSI stand for, and what does SAS stand for?
I don't remember I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
MSI the explanation of expansion of MSI.
I'll look it up. It's
Yeah.
okay. Could you go back to the louder with Crowder slide?
Sorry.
Please? Could you go to the louder with Crowder slide? Please. Back. One more. No, can you just tell me what comes after I double dare you? Right, yeah. Can you tell me what comes after I dare you, I double dare you?
Say one more time.
I guess you don't get the...
No, I understood. I cannot say it.
It's a joke.
Any more questions?
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I was thinking about the case study. So the case study was about the IoT devices, but here was only about the user access, the role-based. So how device will access to sending the data? How you configure this kind of security issues, or based on the things?
Yeah, that is pretty much because you have lot of ways, like how you can transfer data from AWS to Azure. Like you can simply go ahead and like use an Azure Data Factory, and like you configure like all the necessary role-based access in Data Factory as well. But like the entire point of this security discussion is to how to secure the data which is at rest in like storage account.
My question was about, okay, there is a device there, so for sure there should be some agent installed on the device for sending some signals to the server somewhere, okay? So how you gonna authorize or authenticate this device or allow this request to be save data or something like that? I don't know.
Okay, so the thing is like whatever the device is only gonna talk with whatever Kinesis, and then like it is gonna save the data in like a S3 bucket. The only thing which I'm covering here is like we want to do something in Azure, like to show that like what are the AI capabilities of Azure here. So that's why we transfer the data from S3 bucket and like move it to Azure storage account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have an unrelated question. Just go to the next slide. Yeah, here. Is there any possibility to ransomware here to not stolen data, but kind of encrypting data and ask you for giving me some bitcoins?
Yeah, that is what like I try to cover with the data corruption. Like if somebody is gonna like encrypt your data and like make it unusable for you, yeah, Defender has a mechanism to identify that, and like it can warn you. But like Defender cannot protect you from doing that. Like it's just like an intimation system where it will notify you that like these things are happened. Yeah, and like you need to take these action steps to in order to resolve this. Yeah.
But it still can happen. I mean.
Yeah, of course it can happen.
Okay. Okay. Thank.
Any more questions? Okay. So I'll pass it on to. Oh, yeah. Okay.
At what point in the architecture could the data be corrupted? Would it be at the IoT device point? Is that, how would Defender stop something like that? Would there be something that needs to be implemented on AWS side beforehand?
Yeah, it's pretty much possible. Like when we are ingesting the data, like it can be corrupted, and like if we don't enforce proper security during the ingestion, like it can also happen. But I didn't want to cover that part of it. Like so, after it's been ingested, like what are the things can happen, and like how we can secure our data. Yeah. All right. I'll pass it on to Georgia then.
Okay, two guys over there, please. Now, thank you. Swas, please. Mark right. Double, via. Okay. Kansas City Shuffle. Okay. Okay. I am the speaker for the OpenAI. So, requirement. All the data are transferred. Okay. 1. All the security are in place. 2. Now, we need to use the Azure OpenAI to reuse these data that are unstructured and not typed, because we don't know what's happened in the Lambda of SWAS. And we need to find a solution to use this data in the way that the end user could retrieve this data and use for their final scope. I remember that from the case study, the end user are the same employee of the company, because the company want to use this solution to boost their internal productivity. How many people think about ChatGPT? Style? 2, 3. Okay. Hair lost. I shave myself, otherwise I have also the white beard. The AI on my age when I was young was, kid, come here, or the idea of the AI was, computer, put ourselves outside. This is the journey of the Starship Enterprise, blah, 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 okay? So this was the idea of the AI. So now we have the user as input by text, by TTT, but normally the AI have also other services that we can use in order to retrieve the question, have a prompt, and receive an answer. So it's not only typing. It's the most simple way to do that, but it's not only the one. Okay, this is the solution. Easy peasy. We have a user, connect, go in the application, have the several grade of authentication and permission over there. There is a layer of orchestration. The orchestration layer query against the index database. The index database is done by our data sources that are populated by the data movement. And Said, you cannot drop that. I'm so sorry. And after, with the orchestration, call the LLM model to create the response for me. This is the initial draft of the application, how we want to create this application internally. First refinement. We have the list of the data sources, whatever they are, because they are practically unstructured. We don't know if SWAS, what data SWAS put in the S3, how he reach, how will be transferred, and what are the target service. Can be a database, can be a file, can be the Cosmos the Cosmos DB, that is a NoSQL database in Azure. We attach the Azure AI search, that is our index database. We use our application to call this and after enrich the knowledge and propose us the response. At this time, the solution architect finished the job. Manager, you can confirm that, right? Okay, cool, approved. Yeah. Someone say, okay, can give us some other detail here? That would be great. Okay, go baby go. Gun in 50 seconds. We need to create a RAG. RAG, okay, sorry. Is the retrieval augmentation generation that are using the LLM model over my custom data in order to provide a response that will be tailored over my data. So, in order to create, to start from this concept and after fulfill the solution for the entire enterprise, my company that we have, we need to create a flow that will build the main skeleton of the RAG. Okay. Diagram, state chart, pseudo state chart, or diagram flow. The user submit his message. As again, we can type, okay. We can speak in a lot of movie, like the Iron Man. Tony, speak with Jarvis. Don't press any button. There is the AI speech service, voice recognition, to recognize your language and what you mean. We have in all the phone also, when we have the assistant, to search something over Google or in YouTube or the other application. So we use something to propose to the RAG the user input, in this case, user or system message. First of all, we need to filter the input against a blocked list. What is the blocked list? Well, in the company, sorry, in the company, probably I have a different department, and the development department cannot speak about data over the accounting, or vice versa. Okay? So you can reuse the normal entity classification that Azure as default give to you, or you can build your one and create your permission. What it means? What we say before, that probably the developer cannot ask about what are the salary of his people, or what is the salary of the person that stay on my right or sit on my left. Easy. Seems hard, but the blocked list have an important functionality over the semantic of the data and the permission of the data. The semantic of the data is like we cannot write some input as harassment to ask to harass someone, and all the unethical stuff. Okay. There is the triage. Sorry, I pronounce in the French way, sorry. So, we need to skip the normal input, how, good morning, how are you, blah, 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 blah. Good. Because we want we want to use our data over a proper question. The normal statement that we are using every day, hi, good morning, how are you, I'm fine, and you? This communication is blocked, let me say, by the triage, because this is not relevant, should be not go in the search, in the retrieval against my data. If I don't do the triage, I can have potential, let me say, SQL injection. Is the equivalent, because I skip a semantic level of check that can tell me something, because probably some data report about the wellness of someone, or the weather condition that should be a private data, is an example, of course. Something that is not coherent with the context of the normal communication. Okay, assuming that our input go over the blocked list, good, pass. Go over the triage, good. We need to retrieve the data. We need to tokenize our message. We have the index. We ask to Azure Search AI, give me the, start to search in parallel the possible nearest token, use the spectral array to create this temperature, sorry, the proximity that I want. The parameter of the spectral, sorry guys, study this in the university, give you a lot of math and a lot of concept. When you search something, you specify a parameter that is in the code they specify as temperature. It means that if my vector is incident, one of my token go inside one specific position, I can ask to the vector database, give me the nearest token, so the nearest word in this circle, let me say like that. This is the proximity. This proximity give me the refinement of the response. If the temperature of the spectral array is too big, I probably have some AI hallucination, probably, because I take too much context. The context of the search is too wide. So he can generate something that is not real, probably, the probability, or is too strict. so it's not too much generative. If someone use Bing, there is 3 options. Be more generative, be balanced, be very precise. These 3 options is exactly the settings of this search. Okay, so the search here, I don't need to specify too much because this is AI. Should be more declarative than imperative approach. Okay. Imperative approach means that I write something that the machine should be execute. It's like the sequence of the operation. Declarative, I say, I want that, give me. What you are doing to give me the result is your business. The difference between these 2 approaches is that imperative is the code, is the programming language. You write the sequence of the operation. The declarative, is the SQL language. Select something from this with specific condition. You don't write the specific operation that the SQL engine will execute. You declare with a specific syntax what you want. I want that, give me that. After, if is 0 or not, state on your sentence, state on your input, that if we can retranslate, state in my user initial message. The difficulties of the prompting that we find now in the AI world. More I state better my sentence, better is the quality of my result. Higher is the quality of my result. Clear? Okay, cool. So, coming back to the movie, Jervis provide me the vacuum form of the planimetry of the expo. He question, Jarvis execute. That's the point. Until here, we come to say, okay, we find some match, we translate my input in something that I can query, my retrieval module, my retrieval function do something, and now I have back the response. Say, George, retard the response immediately. No. I need to create the answer, not building and it's not a concatenation, okay? There is grounding. The grounding is practically match the response that the severe responses that I retrieve from the database and match against the input. If I'm speaking about Cassandra can be the Apache Cassandra, or Cassandra can be the fortune teller of Troy that say, don't bring inside the dead horses. And after the rest was history. So if this is the main example to understand this phase of grounding, not the grounding phase, the phase of grounding in this level. I need to match the answer, to validate the answer against the input, because probably I'm asking to my input message was how can I use Cassandra key value database to do this task? The grounding need to filter out Cassandra, the fortune telling, and give me the answer that regard to the Apache Cassandra. We again recheck the answer against the blocking list, and we build the response, and we forward to the user. Question. This flow is what you can build with the semantic kernel in your semantic function. Most of the most of the steps that I put here will be provided you by a plugin. A default plugin exists already. You don't need to write code. If you want something custom for your enterprise, you can take the plugin, solid principle, open for extension, close for modification. You take, extend, and adapt to your case. More or less, the grounding, the blocked list, triage, the input message could be, a certain input message could be an existing plugin. So you need to work less and go home first. Okay, architecture. This is the simple architecture to build your RAG. This is bot-based, so ChatGPT style. What I don't like. Because I need to type. For me, I told you, I'm old. 1982. I work for the information, for the document retrieval. I have my master degree. I want that it's not typing. I want to speak for me. Or give, for example, there is some project for to reduce the digital divide. How the deaf people can interact and use the AI, recognize the symbol that they use. So this is for me is an intelligent usage of the technology, but this is my only way. So coming back to the architecture, Kenan will not approve this architecture, but I put here the main component that you can use to build your custom RAG. So there is the user, there is the orchestrator that is an Azure function that need to contact the key vault to take the key or the secrets that he need to use to enter in the open. I have the pointer to enter in the OpenAI and call the AI zone. Let me say like that. Here is the voice because I can, like the phone, like I say Google or YouTube, you speak for your search. Those are the data of SWAS. This Cosmos DB here is done because if to separate the user sessions, if I create a conversation with AI to retrieve some data, I don't want that my conversation, one, is mixed with something other else. Second, the timeline of my conversation allow to the AI to understand better this step here. After 2-3 messages, the context where I'm speaking is well defined. So I easily pass this step and the AI, the LLM model, understand what I'm speaking of. And this help the triage and the grounding help you a lot. So thank you very much. This is the minimum available system to build the RAG. My company, giorgioenterprise.org, is an enterprise, and Kenan will never approve this architecture. Ta-da! Zero trust model. We have a lot of private link. There is the private zone, the segregation by the network. There is the firewall, the authentication here. A lot of very, very funny things that are creating to simplify this model in that. Simplify is a funny trick. If I need to approve that, I need more or less 3-4 hours to understand this diagram. So here, okay, start to speak about some, yes, I have time. Extension. I try to give to you my knowledge. So try to don't think about OpenAI or prompt method as only text. The question that I make at the beginning is not only ChatGPT. Try to go on Netflix and see the series of the Star Trek when I was young, with Christian Shanner that do the Captain Kirk. Peace and prosperity. We can use also the image, because the data that SOAS give to us can be images. SOAS, what kind of data we have here? So you need to create and extract some AI service over the document recognition, for like example on OCR, or form recognition. You can have the voice, the speech to text if you want. Computer. Okay. In the AI, seems on the default layer as practice and POC is everything is fine. Two of the main expensive tasks are integration with the other system, because in that way we show to you what is the effort that you need to make from the ingestion of the data until to query something regarding your data. Almost 50% of the job is here. And second is the transformation. We don't know who write the Lambda, what the Lambda is doing, and the data are not typed and unstructured. So probably we need to give some kind of transformation to refine those data in order that the OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, can do better its job. Testing. Guys, the data, this RAG means that the database is always evolving. Every day, probably you have new data, and the vector database is populated. So, and the same data can be updated. It means that you need to have a process for continuously test your application. What I recommend to you, security and compliances test. The example of the team and department permission. I cannot ask, probably, me as developer, I cannot ask what is the salary of Suas, Kenan, Said, something like that. Probably something that should be entered in the blocked list steps. Monitoring. Okay, guys, it's not log. Okay, AI, you cannot debug. And doesn't work in your local machine. I'm sorry. Something that the developer like, but here doesn't work. So you need to have an efficient strategy of monitoring regarding what's happened. One for the application itself, second for the security. This is some suggestion. Check the usage. How many users are using this internal product? What data are used most? Probably all the people ask about the last year, the sale department ask about the last Q4 2023 data, probably. The cost. How much space you are using? If the pricing layer of the OpenAI is fit for you, is overwhelmed. You reach the top, we need more. The link to find all the content of those slides. Okay, Can we skip this? No, huh? Question. Thanks to the pizza. No, okay.
Just thanks to you, Theo.
Please.
There was. Do you happen to know about the block list checks that are there with around the OpenAI AI part? Are those kind of a black box still for a developer that is utilizing the service there? Because I'm not familiar with the RAG at all.
Okay. First of all, you need to understand what is the meaning of blocked list for you. I come back 1 second. Okay, the blocked list can be tailored over the data. What we are speaking about, okay? Can be tailored like who you are and what we are speaking about. And so on.
Yeah, because I was thinking that, utilizing, for example, feeding gas temperatures, and if you are going to an open AI asking about the explosion point of something, it just blocks you. So
Yes,
but if
yes.
it's an industrial usage, so
Yes, okay. The point, good example. Probably for some security rules that you have in your company, in your enterprise, I remember that this is an enterprise context. These information are available only for specific team or for specific people, or are public. Okay, fine. So this blocked list can be tailored in several ways to fulfill your blocking action. More security rule you have, more complex is this part. That should be work both in input, so for the request, both for the response. Question? Kansas City Shuffle, via.
I was curious about that part that we import the data to the AI. So apart from vectorize the data to be able to use in the AI, do we need to doing some cleansing the data or formatting data, or just we need to put everything to the AI, image, text?
Check the finger. Suas. No, okay. There is a specific format that the Azure OpenAI service, the Azure search service can automatically index for you. The text, JSON, XML, the PDF, the image on this specific format. If you have your input doesn't match that, you need to transform. After, what you're asking is about re-enter in the discussion of the data corruption and re-enter in the triage and in the retrieval. Honestly, here you can put star.
Yeah.
Your goal is this. Put here star. My RAG implementation, my RAG solution, should be able to extract all possible information from your context and respect all the operation that we have. This service here, that is the ML workflow.
What is that? Red stamp on that?
The machine learning. This is the machine learning workflow service.
Coming soon.
That is for the ML ops and the data guy that should take this in order to analyze the data that SWAS give to us and try to classify them, transform if is required. So this job is done here. Your application is here. So is AI.
Yeah.
should be work for you, not you work for her.
Yeah, I mean, my point was we need to do something to reduce this kind of hallucination by the AI, by giving them the correct data or the data that we need, actually.
For that reason, I say,
Yeah,
continuous
yeah,
testing.
exactly. Thank you.
Welcome. Other questions? Here, Chan.
Would the test be self-mutating as well? Like, for example, based on the queries that are put by the users or by the people inside the company, would the continuous test be a self-mutating thing? Like the AI changes the actual test, or does it stay the same unless somebody else change it manually?
Okay. One, you need to speak with Kenan because you need to have access to the database. Second, the continuous test is exactly the scenario that you say. If they cannot be like an HTTP get www.google.com, giving an input, I have always the same output. This test need to check this case, but also need to check when the data are changing. Because if the data are changing and I have always the same response, bug, something wrong. So the continuous testing should be divided in several aspects. Example, the blocked list, the triage, and the grounding could be the first 3 steps. After, someone other else need to take care about the retrieval part and what's happened here. Of course, you can have, you use the divide ad impera. So, first of all, you try to a subset of data, and after you try to scale up and put all together and check what's happened. This is the ML guy, the data guy, help a lot. Other? No? Okay. I want to remember you just to meet up that 7 Peaks host. 3 February, the Code War 2024. Please scan the QR code and join if you are a developer. Otherwise, we have on 28th February, we have our meetup regarding design and dev leaders. Please join also to that because we'll be very interested for you if your role fit in this position. After that, please remember that we are in the CyberSec Asia from the 31 to 1st February here in the Queen City Kit. Please come and visit us. Thank you. Yeah, sure. This slide. Okay, cool, no problem. Scan the QR code, give us your feedback, and after and only after you go to take the pizza. Otherwise, you are in the blocked list. Okay? Say that. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to the people at home. Thank you, thank you, thank you.